Okay, wow, my first video. Welcome to my first video where I give you tips on how to dress your Sunday's best. So I was actually looking into YouTube videos for Catholic Christian women on how to dress for the spring fashion, and I honestly wasn't really that inspired by, anything that was out there. So I kind of just thought, why not just make a YouTube video myself and then share it with other women? As the spring and summertime come along, it becomes a little bit more challenging to learn how to dress, modestly and appropriately for mass, especially when it gets, hot. As I was looking through my wardrobe for this video, I realized I was kind of running into a challenge because I didn't really know, okay, what is considered modesty here? And what are the guidelines for it? Because what I may consider modest may be completely different or arguable for someone else, and what someone else considers modest, I may be like, I don't know about that. And so that's where I kind of was looking into some resources. And so I did some digging, aka I looked up this YouTube video from Ascension Presents, and it was actually really, really helpful. It was about modesty in the real world. I'll link her video in the description down below, but she breaks it down pretty well, and it's basically about how modesty can vary from culture to culture. But this doesn't just mean that, since modesty is subjective, we could just wear whatever we want. No, modesty is actually a virtue. So that is something that becomes like a disposition of your heart and something that you discern just through prayer. And then if you're not religious, it's just something that you kind of feel is right within your heart. That's kind of how you discern what modesty is. A question that I ask myself is, what are the intentions behind the clothes that I'm wearing? Intentionality is very, very, very important. In my faith, I started to kind of look back at some of the clothes that I was wearing and the things that I had in my wardrobe, and I honestly started to cringe at some of the things I used to wear, and I was like, I can't believe I actually wore that. And sometimes I would wear some questionable things to church, so I don't have cast any judgment on any women who are still trying to figure that out, or maybe they don't know, because I was there before too. As I grew deeper in my faith, I started to kind of get uncomfortable wearing certain things from my past because I realized that they weren't really in alignment with what God wanted for me. So when you're picking out clothes and dresses when you're shopping, really think about your why. Why are you picking out this dress? Is it to accentuate your body and your physical appearance, or is it to accentuate your femininity? That being said, modesty is an expression of what's inside your heart, but that doesn't mean that we can't be intentional with what we put on our bodies. In fact, it kind of challenges us to be more intentional because now we're going to start thinking about, well, how can I dress modestly but also beautifully and not just wearing some random outfit that's just going to cover me up because that's considered modest. But now for the big question, how am I going to discern what is modesty for the purpose of this video? I will be creating a modesty spectrum. We'll be rating my outfits from modern, modest, to traditional. The modern category will be considered culturally modest for the current culture that I live in, which is 2026 in Los Angeles, California. Although I personally wouldn't wear them to church, I would consider them relatively modest for out in the world, for, a picnic, a farmer's market, a brunch, things like that. On the other end of the spectrum is traditional, or what some may like to say is trad. When I was researching modesty in the Catholic Church, I found this guideline that Pope Pius XI created in 1930s. It's basically this picture of a woman dressed with a dress that is below the knee, and the collarbone area is no longer than 2 fingers below the collarbone is where the hem lies. The shoulders are covered. The dress is also not form-fitting, which means that it drapes down from the largest part of your body. So like your hips, for example, that will be the largest part where the rest of the dress would be that width. He also goes on to explain that if you don't have sleeves, a shawl is fine, or just any covering is fine as long as it's not see-through, which honestly is kind of hard for me because a lot of my really cute shawls are see-through. So the traditional, like doing the trad area of this video with these guidelines is a challenge for me, but bring on the challenge. I would say my personal style is modest, like just right in the middle. I don't mind showing my shoulders sometimes and, you know, my arms, but I also remain relatively modest where I don't like, I try to stay away from dresses that are too short or too revealing in the bust area. So that's kind of where I'm at in my personal fashion choices. So now that we have our rating scale configured, let's get into styling. Some key components for the spring season, whether you're wearing something modern or traditional, is linen fabrics and lightweight fabrics. Something that I really liked from Proverbs 31 is that it actually does mention, you know, a woman wearing fine linens. And I just thought that was a really nice standard, because I do think that we should be putting ourselves to a higher standards of natural fabrics. So one of my favorite pieces that I like to wear in the summer and the spring are this cotton linen blend, which they're like khakis, and I wear these for pretty much everything. When I'm just going out to the grocery store, when I'm you know, going to the beach to like catch up with some friends and have brunch. And they're casual, but they also are cute because they're linen. And I would pair this with like a white top. I also love in the spring and in the summer wearing hats. So if you know me, I'm a big bucket hat girl. And so I have, you know, I only have 3 bucket hats, which I wear all the time, but this is one of them. This is just a really cute add-on for the summer, spring. And I bought this to kind of match it. And so this adds that, that beach girl coastal vibe. And then if it's really too hot and you want to wear some shorts, I have this option as well. You can even wear a little, you know, shawl if it gets breezy. Like, I like to wear earth tones. So I think that a good key component to spring wear in general is, like, I noticed that I personally reach a lot for nude color outfits, just because it goes with everything. It goes with every occasion. Another important thing to keep in mind when in the summer and the spring is flats. Choosing the right flats. You're going to be wearing a lot of sandals during this time of year. So what kind of sandals look good with your outfit? And so I have these. You can wear nude color. I also have these huaraches that I use all the time for my summer. Like, I use them for dresses. I use them for just those summer days when it's just, I just want a beachy vibe, but I also want an elevated summer spring look. And so I got these huaraches from Mexico and I wear them every year, and I've had these for years. So definitely recommend a pair that's like a go-to sandal that you can style for spring and summer, that will go with not only, you know, your pants, but also your dresses. Now, if you want a pop of color and you're like, okay, I need some color in my life, stick to like a solid natural base, and then I'll go ahead and add some color. Make sure that you have flats that go with all your outfits. You want to make sure that whatever you have in your wardrobe can be curated so well and picked out so well that you can actually wear that piece of clothing or that article of clothing to any other piece of clothing that you have in your wardrobe. I would rate that all to be modern, but still modest in the real world. I also wanted to add this piece of wardrobe, this dress that I thrifted, because although it is relatively modest, it still is like above the knees. You know, I would wear this to like travel. I would wear this to any other random day. Would I wear this to church? Maybe. To be honest, I don't know. Just because at this point in my specific fashion journey, I don't wear short dresses to church. It's still a vintage dress. Like, it's from the 1960s. The 1960s had like more of a square type of look, and that's when the dresses became shorter. But it's still a really cute dress, and so that's why I would rate this in between modest and modern. My next modest outfit is this jumpsuit. I really like this because it's perfect for just hot weather. You can style it with white shoes or white flats, depending on the occasion. If it's something more casual, you can go with the shoes. If it's something that's more, you want to dress it up but still be a little casual, you can pair it with the flats. And then you can add on a white button up if you're feeling a little chilly that day. So that's something that I really like about this, this jumpsuit. I like these polka dots. They're just classy and simple. And, sometimes when you have too many, like a pattern that clashes too much, like a over floral print, sometimes can be overwhelming. Something that's simple with like a base color and some polka dots, I think less is more. So having less colors clashing in your wardrobe will call for a more classy look. That doesn't mean though you cannot have color in your wardrobe. Trust me, I love color and I love accent pieces. So the next dress that I'm going to pull up is this blue dress, and I like to pair this dress with red heels and a red purse. And I just feel like it adds like a level of, class and elegance, but it's also like showing that, hey, I like a little pop of color, and adding that extra touch really kind of makes you just stand out, but in a good way. I would rate the blue dress, I would rate it in the middle of modesty, because it's not considered traditional, because I'm still showing my shoulders. And to be honest, wouldn't necessarily wear a shawl with this outfit, just because I've tried it before and it kind of ruins it, honestly. And so that's why I rate this dress modest and not traditional. Now for this dress, more color for the springtime. And so usually I'm not someone who likes floral print, but there are occasions when I'm okay with some floral print. And so this is one of those occasions. And the reason why I'm okay with this is because there's a few personal ground rules that I have about floral print. First of all, this dress has a fabric that is like a cotton blend. I don't know the exact blend it is, but if you feel it, it feels like a linen or like some sort of cotton blend. So that's why, to me, material fabric is very, very, very important. It can really make or break the difference between something that's cheap and something that is a little more classy. So I like to stay away from like, I can do a whole video on different materials to stay away from. Another reason why this floral print dress is okay in my book is because it has one color. Yes, it has pink and different shades of pink, but generally speaking, it's just pink and white. And that's something that I like. I don't like when there's all these different color crashes. Sometimes the color crashes are fine when you're trying to be like fun, and maybe you're trying to experiment with some different patterns, and there are some color clashes that are fine. But just when it comes to flower print, I try to be extra careful, because with floral print, it can get a bit chaotic. Another thing that I really like about this dress is that I have the freedom to style it how I want. If this had big sleeves, which the traditional dress would have sleeves, and I like that this doesn't, because now I have more freedom to style it. You can style with either the pink shawl or a white shawl. Yeah, you can also like kind of have fun with the shoes. I like to wear these flats, or I can wear some heels. It really adds that summer spring vibe. And so just when you pick out a flower dress, like, all I ask is just be really intentional with the type of flower dress that you're looking at, that it's not clashing, that it kind of is harmonious, and really take a look at that fabric. Please take a look at that fabric. Natural fabrics, you cannot go wrong with natural fabric. Okay, what else about this dress? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and one more thing about this dress is that the background of this flower piece is white. I remember when I was in high school, this like black background with like floral print dresses were in. And I remember my sister telling me like, I just don't think that looks good. And ever since then, that kind of just stuck. And I kind of agree with that ever since I compare black base with flower print versus white base with flower print. I just think that the white base looks so much prettier. I just think that it looks more classy. I don't know, just it looks less busy. I think that's the perfect way to put it. It looks less busy. So lighter colors typically are more appropriate for the spring and the summertime. Now moving on to traditional. For traditional dresses, I noticed this was really hard for me because I don't have a single dress in my wardrobe that actually fits the guidelines from Pope Pius XI. So I had to be a little bit creative and find cardigans that fit the dress appropriately. I'm not a huge fan of cardigans. I sometimes feel like it looks too old lady and grandma. That's why I always opt in for shawls, even though that's also old lady and grandma, but I feel like it just looks more classy. I think shawls look more classy, and I think that cardigans are just kind of like a lazy piece to cover up instead of something that's more intentional. However, I did use cardigans for this video just because I feel like it really fits the guidelines that Pope Pius has given us. And the cardigans that I chose were actually very intentional. And I didn't just choose them because, you know, I had them. I chose them because I'm styling them a very specific way. You know, I love going to Latin Mass, and I really enjoy going to Latin Mass, one, because I just feel like it's so beautiful. It feels like heaven on earth. But also, I love to see the way people dress. People put so much more intention in the way they dress, especially the men. They're going in with their outfits, their suits, and the women are all dressed up and veiled, and I love the veiling. One thing that I will say I noticed that trad women struggle with is how to dress modestly without looking frumpy, without looking like truly an old lady. Because don't get me wrong, I love my vintage stuff. I love old lady things. But there's a way to be vintage and have those pieces, but also learn how to style it so that it's still a little modern, but modest, you know? Don't get me wrong, I'm all for the trad wife vibe, but I think that that culture focuses too much on coverage and modesty when that should already be a given. The next challenge is, how can we do that with intentionality, with beauty? How can we present ourselves humbly but confidently before the Lord and like go out into the world and be ambassadors for Christ and look beautiful while doing it? And, you know, for people who aren't religious, like, you know, you can skip through this, these notes or whatever, but kind of speaking more for like Christian women, I just find that this is something that we've been really struggling with. And this is honestly why I kind of feel called to share these, this outfit inspo and these videos, just to kind of give you that inspiration and that confidence that beauty is, yes, it's in modesty, but it's also in intentionality. And there's so many ways that we can express ourselves through fashion and in the way that we present ourselves in the world. And it doesn't have to be restrictive. It could be, it's freeing. Ultimately, it's freeing. So, to the traditional pieces. One thing that I recommend when it comes to styling is starting with a base. In all seasons of life, whether it's fall, spring, whatever it is, always start with a good base. So in the springtime, a good base, in the spring and summertime, a good base is white. For example, I have this white dress, and you can style this dress so many different ways. I can go on and on. I can do one video just styling this one dress just because it's white. So for this video, I'm going to show two ways. One way is a little less summer and more spring because it's going to be with the black cardigan. But I did want to show how to style a dress with a cardigan. So that's why I chose the black cardigan, because it matches these ballet black shoes. And then you can also pair it with a black purse. You can veil yourself with this. It's not very a traditional veil. It's a scarf. But that's where the fun and the fashion comes in, is like you can still be modest, you can still be reverent, but but you can also still be creative. So you don't have to go for the traditional white veil and wear that to mass if you feel like, hey, I feel like this veil might actually, this covering might actually fit my outfit more. And that's okay. Like, I don't see where there's anything wrong with that. I see women covering their head with hats and like many different types of things. So a headscarf, I don't think is against any traditional Latin mass rules. And then after mass, when you take off your headscarf, you could just like tie it around your purse, and now you have a cute little scarf and a little pop of something else to go with your outfit. But another option is this, if you wanted to go for a more summer vibe, and wear a blue cardigan, and I love to call this blue Marion blue, and you can pair it with some flats or heels. It adds color into your outfit, and just, this is a bit more feminine. Well, honestly, they're all pretty feminine. If you're wearing a dress, I mean, it's a feminine vibe. The shawl allows you to cover your shoulders, but in a just simple and more mature way that is also very springtime vibe. So I love, love, love shawls because I just feel like it's a little more classy. That's just my personal opinion. But like I said, you can't go wrong with an intentional cardigan. My last outfit that I'm going to be showing today is this cherry dress that I bought recently, and I love it because it really does give me the 1950s vibes. However, it's less, I don't know what the word is, tacky. I feel like usually when, the people try to dress like the 1950s and they wear the typical cherry dress, they have like these huge cherries on them, and it's like, I don't know. I personally find it a little tacky because it's like, I just find it a little bit costume with those certain dresses. First of all, the reason why I like this dress is because of the material. Okay, let's start there. If you can't feel the fabric, but it's like a linen. I'm not that good with my fabric names, but I know when something feels natural. Another perk is that it has pockets. Anyways, so now you're probably thinking like, how is this in the trad category? Because obviously your shoulders are being shown. But the way that I styled this was so I don't know if you could see this, but it has like little green stems. And so the way that I styled this was, instead of going for a red cover up, I went for a green. So now you have a little cover up that fits the guidelines for Popeyes. Isn't that cute? This is so adorable. This is giving me like 1950s. I don't know. I just love the 1950s. I base my whole style off of modernizing 1950s pieces. I can go on and on about it. But anyways, and so the shoes, you can wear red shoes. You can wear red shoes with this red purse. I kind of matched it with this red purse. Even if you don't do the red shoes, and if you kind of just want to stick to like accenting the green, you can just do like some white shoes. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. You can just play around with the different shoe and purse combo. So thank you all for watching my first fashion video. I hope I did okay. And I hope if you have any like arguments about anything that I said, please comment. I actually want to see what people think about some of the things I mentioned. And if I said anything heretical, please let me know. I'm here to meet all women where they're at, and I hope to be a part of your modesty journey and be some sort of source of inspiration for you. With that being said, I will say that the more coverage you have on your body, the more elegant and classy you look. Well, given you're not wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. I look forward to doing more of this with you, and I just hope that I inspired you today to help you dress your Sunday's best.